You're listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast, where I give you insight, awareness, and enlightenment about your parenting and your relationship with your kids. In today's episode, we are talking through our decision as a family to take the leap to homeschooling. And if you have no interest whatsoever in homeschooling, stick with me. This is not just about homeschooling. I want to share some universal points and considerations that we as parents need to be aware of and think about regarding school as a whole. So don't just say, oh, not interested in homeschool and say goodbye. I promise there's good stuff for everybody. But in today's episode, I want to talk through three main things that were a big factor in our decision to decide to homeschool. But no matter what type of education you intend for your child, these are things that need to be considered. And just as a little bit of backstory, we have been throwing around the idea of homeschooling for about 5 years, really since we moved, which was in 2016. And we had talked about it and then found a really great school, and it was still always a little bit on our radar. So we finally, as of a couple weeks ago, realized that it was the time. So here we are. So today we're going to talk through schools and screens. And if you know me at all, you've been with me a long time, some of you, I have a very passionate view on screen use and children. So the new marriage of academics and screen time is something I definitely want to discuss. And then secondly, I want to talk through homework and what homework looks like these days as compared to when I was in school, for example. And then finally, the importance of kids being able to be kids and play and how much they need that free, uninterrupted, creative, imaginative, spontaneous play that is so important to them. So we will look at those three things, yes, in relation to homeschooling, but just universally as well. So the path to calm, confident, and in control parenting starts now. All right, so as I mentioned, it's been on my husband and my radar for a little while. When we moved, we didn't know where he was going to go for school, and we didn't really have awareness or knowledge of schools in our new county, so we were kind of tossing the idea around. We found an amazing charter school, and he's been there for this is his 5th year there. And so we were really happy up there, and it was just in the back of our minds a little bit. And then he just started 6th grade, and I know I brought that up a little while ago, and the transition to middle school is always hard. We work with tons of kids at our center who start kindergarten, who start 6th grade, and who start 9th grade. And I know other states divvy up schooling a little bit differently. So for us, kindergarten through 5th is elementary, 6th through 8th is middle, and 9th through 12th is high school. And so we see those age points often in our center, and parents reach out because kids are struggling to adjust to the new expectations, the new environment, the new level of responsibility, starting kindergarten, starting 6th, and starting 9th. It's almost always a big transition for kids. So I anticipated that we would have some growing pains, some changes, some adjustment. We did. He was used to just doing his work, and then his tests were A's because he had done his work. And that's not the same in middle school. So a couple of his test grades weren't stellar at the beginning of the year, but he learned how to study and how to manage that. And so I thought we had kind of gotten over that starting middle school hump. But here's where it all fell apart for me. We started getting emails talking about he's now going to have to do this amount of practice in this subject on the computer. So first it was 5 minutes each night of this program called Rocket Math. And if you're not familiar with it, it's basically this gamified math app, basically. And you have to do addition, multiplication, subtraction problems, and you level up. And so it's this gamified practicing your basic addition, subtraction, kind of things like that. So that was 5 minutes a day. And then we got an email that said, oh, now, by the way, he has to do 20 minutes of typing practice each night. So then he has to log on to this typing program and do 20 minutes of typing. And then we got an email from a math teacher who said he now has to do 45 minutes of math practice in this program called IXL every week. And then just a couple weeks ago, we get an email from the English teacher who says, oh, and now there's language IXL for 45 minutes a week. So you know my bent, I talk about it a lot, how dangerous screens are, how disruptive they are, how study after study and all this data and all this research is coming out saying how damaging it is and how detrimental it is. And in my book, I don't know if y'all had a chance to read it. If you are interested, it's available on Amazon, Device Detox. In the book, I talk about how the major tech people, so, the people that are in charge of all of the social media and all of the development of Apple and all of these really high up in the tech industry, they do not let their children have the products that they create. They don't give their kids TVs. They don't give their kids phones or tablets. They don't give them access to social media. And in the book, I ask the question, why is that? Why do the people who are putting these devices and these apps and these social media platforms in the hands of children as young as 1 year old in our country, what do they know that's saying, I'm not going to let my own child use the products that I'm creating? And I go into all of the background of everything that I know about what happens with the tech world and what they're doing to our kids. So you can read that in the book. But what my struggle is this school, 6th grade year, all of a sudden is saying screens, more screens, more screens, more screens. And it got to a point where every single night, all I was doing was sitting, monitoring what was going on the computer to make sure that he wasn't searching the internet, wasn't going to places he wasn't supposed to go. And I was chained to the office of making sure that he was doing his work on the computer. And here was my issue. I asked, can we please have alternatives? Can you send home math problems on paper so that he can practice those? Can you send home the English that he needs to read on paper and he can answer questions on paper? Can we do math problems, in an alternative fashion? I don't want him on screens. This is a personal choice we've made as a family. He doesn't even get screens during the week. Can we have alternatives? And it was met with resistance and opposition and refusal every step of the way. So fast forward, I'm to a point where every single night, I don't even really want to come home because I know that it's just going to be hours on the screen and I hated every second of it. And I did a little tally in my head and it came to me that he was spending 240 minutes a week for required homework on a screen. That's 4 hours. My son doesn't even get 4 hours of screens in a week total. Combining everything, combining his TV time, his video games, everything he does related to a screen, he only gets 4 hours a week. And the school was asking me to give him 4 extra hours just to complete homework assignments. So that was a major red flag to me, especially when they refused to even acknowledge that as his parent, I didn't want him on screens that often. So, and this is common. This is where the universality of this comes in. You may say, you know what, I love my child's school and I love that they go to a brick and mortar school every day and they have great teachers and we're in a great school. That's awesome. I think that we need to celebrate teachers. We need to celebrate the schools that are doing right by our kids and teaching them and helping them love learning and helping them love acquisition of knowledge. So this is not a dig against schools as a whole, but this new direction that so many schools are taking where all of your assignments are done online, all of your homework is conducted on the computer. I have lots of kids that have told me they've been assigned a tablet from the school. And so they actually hand a device to every child in the school, and that becomes their device for school use. And parents say, well, I can't do anything because it's the school's tablet. I can't put parental controls on it. It's the school's tablet. I can't block what they have access to. It's the school's tablet. This is scary, y'all. I'm horrified by this on so many levels. So point number one, we made the decision that 240 minutes of screen time each week just for school was just unacceptable for us. But even if you decide you don't want to homeschool, please monitor, please be aware, count up, tally the minutes, tally the amount of time they spend doing schoolwork on a computer, on a tablet, on a device. Think through adding that to the amount of time they're spending for pleasure when they watch TV and movies and when they play video games and when they're on social media, whatever they're doing. I would advise against all of that, but that's a podcast for a later day. So be aware of the amount of time that schoolwork is adding to the total screen time. Go back and listen to some of the earlier podcasts specifically about screen time. There's articles and videos on my website as well. You can make yourself aware of the recommendations. How many hours each day should your child, based on their age, have access to a screen? And if 2 hours are spent doing homework, they're already over their limit and they didn't even get to do anything for fun. So the marriage that I'm seeing of schools and screens, that's alarming to me for a lot of reasons. And so just be mindful of that, be aware of it. Talk to your kids' teachers. Ask them for alternatives. Up until this year, they always provided me with alternatives. In elementary school, they always sent home paper assignments instead. So ask if they can do something else. Don't just take the expectations of the school as truth without asking if there are options that are more appropriate for the decisions you've made for your family. Okay, so secondly, homework. Oh my gosh, we have just spent way too much time doing homework lately. And so that was another major decision factor for us. Let me give you my son's schedule to put this in perspective for you because I want you to understand the time frame. So alarm goes off at 6:40 every morning. We are in the car driving by 7. We have a 35 or so minute drive to school. So his school starts at 7:45. We pick him up at 3:45. He gets home about 4:15. So from 6:40 to 4:15, it's been school. That's a lot of hours, y'all, 10 hours. So we're talking a lot of time already devoted to school. He gets home at 4:15. He eats a snack. He might read a book for a little while. He usually has a little bit of downtime. And then between 5:30 and 6, when I get home, he has already started homework most days. And then I would get home between 5:30 and 6, and we would spend the entire evening, including as I'm cooking, including as we're eating, including as he's getting ready for bed, studying, finishing assignments, making sure that he completed everything. So waking up at 6:40, going to bed at 9, he had about an hour break in an entire day that he wasn't doing school. And my husband and I were constantly looking at each other saying, he just spent all day in school. Why did he not have time to do this at school? Why are they making him do this at home? In my mind, and I've taught at a collegiate level, I've never taught except substitute teaching. I've never taught in lower grade levels. So I've never been an elementary school teacher. I've never been a middle school teacher. So I only speak from what I remember when I was a kid. When I had homework, it was because we ran out of time in class, and that was usually an outlier. In other words, math class, we did our math in math. But if something happened and we were a little bit short on time, the teacher would say, finish this at home. And it was 2-3 problems. The only time I remember doing homework to this degree was when we had projects that were due, that required a lot of time, or when I was studying for big tests. But the idea that he's bringing home 4 or 5 subjects worth of homework every night and having to spend 3-4 hours at home after he's already been at school all day, it's overwhelming. And we all kind of reached this point where we just looked at each other and said, this is not, sorry, that's my phone. This is not the lifestyle that we want. We don't want to have to sit and do homework all night, every night. That we have no family time. We have no fun time. We can't go and do anything. And honestly, you know us, we're baseball people. My son wasn't even playing baseball this season. If he had been in baseball, he would have failed. There was no way we could have gone and done baseball 3 nights a week with the amount of homework that was asked of him. It has been crazy how much work he's had to do. And he has no extracurriculars right now. Most weeks, he hasn't even been able to go to youth group at church because he's had so much work to get done. And he said, I don't have time. I have to get all my homework done. And we've had to forfeit church. Those are huge sacrifices that we've made. No baseball, no church, no time to go out and, ride around. And we have a really cool place right across from our neighborhood called Starkey Market. And it's like this awesome combination of Cracker Barrel and like a produce stand. So we love going over there and we get these amazing pickles and whatever. It's like this fun thing we do as a family. And we haven't even been able to do that. We haven't been able to go take walks. He hasn't been able to go ride his bike. It's just been nothing but school, and it's been overwhelming. And so here's the universality. Sometimes it's easy to just let our kids worry about their own homework and their own stuff that they have to do for school while we do our stuff when we get home. It may be worth looking into the amount of work that your child is expected to do on a daily or weekly basis and see if it makes sense for how old they are. That was a big moment for me. I thought, he's 11. He is 12 now, but at the start of 6th grade, he was 11. And I thought, 11-year-olds do not need to have this much work. This isn't what an 11-year-old should be expected to carry. It's too much. So monitor what your kids are doing for homework and how many hours they're spending. And if it's monopolizing your lives, maybe it's too much and maybe it's not as necessary as it seems. That was the realization that we had. It's not as important at 11 as all the work that he's doing. And, Eric and I are both very well educated. We both have graduate degrees. School has been always important to us. School is not something that we blow off. So I'm not saying he shouldn't have to do school and he shouldn't have to do well in school. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying at 11, he's a little boy that should be able to just be a little boy instead of spending 14, 15 hours a day during school doing schoolwork. So that was the homework concern. Third is the importance of play. Oh my gosh, I'm a play therapist. So this is my thing, my passion. And I could give you dozens, hundreds probably of studies of the benefit of play for kids. They learn about the world. They come to understand how to solve problems. They socially adapt to be more pleasant to be around. I call it a checks and balances where kids will rub off rough edges of other kids. So you have all of these benefits. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your emotional health. It's good for your cognition. Kids who play a lot are actually smarter statistically. You have all of these benefits of playing. And how often is your child playing when school year is in session? Obviously, summer breaks, obviously, I'm hoping that your kids are outside playing a lot. I'm hoping they're not sitting inside on video games. I'm hoping they're outside climbing trees and riding bikes and playing street hockey and, doing a wiffle ball baseball game in the middle of the neighborhood. That's what I hope your kids are doing when they don't have school. But when they're in school, how much playtime do they get? Do they go from school to piano to soccer to dinner to homework to bath time to bedtime every day during the week? Are they overscheduled? Are they doing too much work? Are they stressed because they have so much they have to keep up with? Do they ever have downtime? Do they ever have time they can just play and have fun and giggle and be kids? We as a society have rushed childhood, in my opinion. And so we have all of these kids that don't even know how to be kids anymore. I got home every day when I was little and I'd say, going down the street. And I would go down the street until it was dark and I knew I had to go home. And all the kids in the neighborhood, we would have skateboards out there and we would skip rocks together and we would pet the cats and we would ride our bikes. And there was Allen's Creek Bridge Allen's Creek was this little creek that ran right by our house. And there was the bridge that went over it. And my brother and I would try to cross under the bridge, hanging onto the poles and see how far we could go before we fell in the river. I mean, I have so many memories of just being outside and having fun when I was little. And instead now our kids are, pushed to succeed in all of these things. They have to learn an instrument. They have to learn a sport. They have to get tutoring. They have to have, special hobbies at school, and they're in this club and they're in this, and then we have this going on. And It's too much. So my encouragement would be look at your child's schedule and see how much time on a daily or weekly basis they have to play. When are they just creatively, imaginatively, spontaneously playing because they have the time and the freedom to do it? Kids don't play when they're stressed because there's a hierarchy. So if you notice that even when your kid has downtime, they're not wanting to go outside and play, they're not wanting to go outside and have fun, it might be an indicator that they have a lot emotionally that they're dealing with. And so that was another big moment for us. We realized that he just doesn't have time to play anymore. And that's sad. And that's not what we want for him. So now you know a little bit more into the why of we've decided to homeschool. But I think those are three universal principles that as parents and as people who care about kids, these are things we need to be aware of. We need to think about how much screen time our kids are being forced to do because of school. And then pair that with how much screen time they're getting just for free time. We need to look at the amount of homework they're doing. And is it too much? And is there a way to cut that down for them? And then how much time are they spending playing? It's important. It's crucial, really, to their development. So I want to close really quickly with a conversation I had with our son. So we told him we were going to be homeschooling, and we processed that with him. He initially was a little surprised and then has just gotten progressively more and more excited about it. As a matter of fact, last night he said, "Can we just start homeschooling now? Do we have to wait till January?" So he's really ready. But I want to share from a newly 12-year-old's perspective. I said to him, "Hey, bud, I wonder what you're most excited about now that you know we're going to be homeschooling." And that's open-ended. He could have given me any response. But his response was, "I'll actually be able to play with my friends again. I won't have to do homework every night. And I won't have to be so stressed about school." And out of the mouth of my 11-year-old, that is the wisdom and truth of why we've decided to homeschool. Those are the 3 points that I felt in my heart and in my gut that were the greatest barriers to what we were doing academically. He had no time to play. He had way too much homework, and he was stressed. And he articulated it on his own with no prompting from me. And that just really validated and confirmed that this was the right decision for our family. So I know there's 3 camps out there. So let me talk to each. If you are a homeschooling family, if you've been homeschooling for a long time, if you're new to homeschooling, if homeschooling is your academic path, help a sister out. Please email me. Give me thoughts. Give me your tips. Give me your wisdom. Send me some, here's my trial and error. Here's what I've learned along the way. I would love to hear from you. Brenna at thekidcounselor.com. Let me know what I don't know that I don't know. I'd love to get some encouragement from all of you homeschoolers out there. I know there are some of you who are probably considering homeschooling, or you've at least talked about it, you've thought about it, you've looked into it a little bit. Do some more research. Talk to homeschooling families that you know. That was really helpful to us. We had lunch with a homeschooling family, and they gave us all kinds of insight and made us feel a lot more prepared. So talk to some people, look into it. It's not as overwhelming as it seems at first. So once you kind of have your plan, it's a lot easier. So I would encourage you, if you're considering it, I would encourage you to do that and just kind of see where that takes you. And then to the third camp, if you are not at all interested in homeschooling, you love your school, you love where your kids are, you're really happy with everything, I'm so encouraged by that. I think that we need tons of schools and teachers and academic institutions that are helping kids grow and learn and develop the way that they should. So if you have no interest whatsoever in homeschooling, I would encourage you, know what your kids are learning, be involved in their education, monitor their screen time when they have to be on screens for homework, monitor the curriculum that they're being taught, look into what they're learning and how long it takes and how stressed they are. Be involved, be proactive, make sure that it's what you think it is, because I think sometimes it's a really slow fade to where all of a sudden you wake up and say, whoa, how did we get here? That's what happened for us. up and through 5th grade, everything was great. And then a couple months into 6th grade, it was just like, whoa, what has happened? So I would encourage you, even if you love your child's school, be involved, be attentive, and be aware of what's happening, because that's the only way you can ensure that your child is going to have the best education that they can get. So if you have not already, check out my new podcast website. All of my podcasts live at playtherapyparenting.com. And the newest episode is at the top, and then the archive of all the episodes are there for you as well. And playtherapyparenting.com/newsletter is where you can sign up if you'd like to be aware of everything that I'm sending out, and all the curriculum and content and all of that I put out. It's all sent through the newsletter. And Brenna at The Kid Counselor is the way you can get a hold of me. I'd love to hear from you. Share with me your thoughts, your questions, your comments. I'm always happy to engage. In a future episode, we're going to dive into a headline that I read that said that there are concerning medical and behavioral changes taking place in young people because of social media. And we'll talk about that in a future episode, because social media is the most prominent use amongst young people when they're on a device. And we can talk all day about how dangerous devices are, but social media specifically, they are observing concerning behavioral and medical changes because young people are on social media. So it's definitely something we need to be aware of, pay attention to, and work to fight against. So as always, thank you for being a part of the Play Therapy Parenting family. I'm so happy that you're with me each week, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more parenting training and to subscribe to our newsletter, go to www.thekidcounselor.com.